Mr. Speaker. Minister of State, Christopher Pincher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with your permission, sir, I will answer questions 2, 5 and 15 together. On the 27th of August, my right honourable friend, the Foreign Secretary, spoke to the Brazilian Foreign Minister, Mr. Araújo. I will also be seeing the Brazilian Ambassador, Mr. Arruda, tomorrow to reaffirm our commitment to working in partnership with Brazil on a range of issues, including the environment. In response to the very serious fires, the Prime Minister at the G7 announced £10 million for protection and restoration of rainforest, and that's in addition to the £120 million of funding we provide through our other programmes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, whilst we welcome the £10 million the UK Government has committed to helping restore the Amazonian rainforest, this is paltry compared with the amount spent on advertising for a Brexit debacle. Can the Foreign Secretary tell me if the money is spent by local partners in a way that ensures Indigenous people will take charge of the process to reforest their homes and protect our planet, and what further funding is he willing to pledge today?
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the honourable gentleman's passion for the issue. I can confirm that we spend £120 million through our International Climate Finance Programme. That goes to help deforestation, it goes to help sustainable farming, and it complements the trading activities that we have with Brazil, which ensure the Brazilian economy grows and prospers, including for those farmers who are also part and parcel of the problem, burning some of the rainforest.
Zeichner.
Mr. Speaker, over 120,000 people have already petitioned this Parliament, urging trade sanctions to be used against Brazil to put pressure on them. Given a minister was in Brazil recently, what pressure was put on by the government?
My honourable friend, the member for Bournemouth West, was there as part of our international trade obligations to ensure that we build trade with our strategic partners such as Brazil. I will be seeing the Brazilian ambassador tomorrow, making clear that we want to help Brazil with its difficulties in those terrible fires, but also make clear we want to trade with them because that is a way of building their economy and ensuring the sorts of fires that are currently raging are put out and stay out.
Hannah Bardell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Last week, both the Taoiseach and French President said they will attempt to block the Mercosur trade agreement if Brazil continues its environmental commitments. Does the Foreign Secretary or Minister agree with me that the burning of the Amazon is a human and environmental tragedy that requires a global solution? And it's no time for fragile male egos or social media spats. And what steps has he taken to ensure that situations like these receive an urgent and immediate multilateral response now and in the future?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I hope that the honourable lady will not think that my response is in any way macho. My concern is to make sure that the trade with our two countries prospers and to make sure that the Mercosur arrangement succeeds. It will result in something like 91% of present tariffs being removed. That can only be to the benefit of Brazilian farmers. It can only be to the benefit of the Brazilian economy. And as I say, if we do that, if we help ensure that these sensible trade arrangements are made, those fires can be put out and they'll stay out.
Vicky Ford.
Thank you. It's been suggested that changes to trade flows between the US and China may be fuelling some of the Amazon forest fires. Does my honourable friend agree that all leading nations should be working together to stop this devastation, and what conversations are happening with other leading countries?
Well, my right honourable friend, the Foreign Secretary, met other foreign ministers at Gimnik earlier this week. He has made clear the concern that we have for those fires. He's also made absolutely clear the importance that we believe that trade has to building economies in South America, in the Far East, which encourages a better response to these sorts of tragedies.
James Gray.
Mr. Speaker, deforestation in the Amazon is indeed a catastrophe of global and generational proportions. We must, of course, do the right things about it. I very much welcome the pressure that the Minister has described. But was he also not aware of the fact that deforestation in the Amazon has decreased quite considerably over the last 20 years? While it's very, very bad, it's very much less bad than it was. And equally that the level of decrease, therefore, in the size of the forest has been reduced. And will the Minister therefore agree with me that this is a domestic matter for the Brazilian government and that we must persuade them to do the right thing rather than confronting them or berating them?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I certainly think it is better to talk rather than engage in megaphone hectoring. Deforestation has increased over the last few years. It's been increasing, in fact, in Brazil since 2015, some way before the present government took office. I think it's right that we engage with them, that we try to persuade them to use sensible methods to reduce and stop this problem. It is an international concern, and that is why we've raised it, and we will continue to raise it with the Brazilian authorities.
Latham.
Having spent some of the summer in the Ecuadorian rainforest, a part of the same Amazon rainforest that we're talking about, what other countries have actually made representations to Brazil about the damage that they're doing to the world, not just to Brazil?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the fires that are currently raging don't just affect Brazil, they also affect, for example, Bolivia. Bolivia is concerned about it, as is Venezuela, as is Peru, as is Colombia. So I think an international response is helpful, and certainly those countries around that can help Brazil with its difficulties should be encouraged to do so.
Helen Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the fires have affected 640 million acres of Amazon rainforest. And in his answer just now, the Minister has revealed that he does not understand the problem with the Mercosur trade deal is that cutting beef tariffs incentivises destruction of the rainforest. I want to ask him, what proposals is the government going to put forward at the Chile conference on climate change in November?
Mr. Speaker, as the Honourable Lady ought to know, high agricultural tariffs hurt the poorest. That will only encourage them to do the easy thing, which is to burn land rather than to farm it sustainably and to protect the rainforest. Mercosur is a sensible free trade agreement that should be encouraged. And in the fullness of time, I trust that we also will undertake a free trade deal with Brazil. More details of that, I'm sure, are to come. Mr. Speaker, I've spoken to the Chief Minister, Mr. Picardo, by phone on a number of occasions in the last month, and indeed will speak to him again later on this afternoon. We have regular ministerial contact, including through the Joint Ministerial Council with Gibraltar, which has met 9 times since its formation 3 years ago. Ministers and officials across government are working closely with the Government of Gibraltar in preparation for Brexit. Gibraltar is, Mr. Speaker, and will remain a vital part of our family, whatever the shape of our exit from the EU on the 31st of October.
Neil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I refer to my entry in the Register of Interests. I welcome my right honourable friend to his post. Can I also welcome his early engagement with Her Majesty's Government of Gibraltar? Will he bear in mind and make it quite clear that we fully support Gibraltar politically and in practical terms as we leave the European Union, and in particular deal with the practical measures of that vast number of foodstuffs and workforce that currently come across the border that must be resolved before we leave?
Well, Mr. Speaker, no one is more doughty in his championship of Gibraltar than my honourable friend, and I'm grateful to him for his kind words. Let me assure him, as the Prime Minister has assured the Chief Minister, that the United Kingdom will protect Gibraltar's interests as we leave the EU. And from 1967 to 2002, all points in between and since, we have said that Gibraltar is and remain a vital part of our family. The Government of Gibraltar is responsible for its own contingency planning, but the UK Government regularly speaks and meets with ministers, as I have said, to ensure that their robust plans are in place.
Mr. Speaker, isn't the Minister aware that whether it's Gibraltar or whether it's Hong Kong or whether it's Zimbabwe, people are struggling for the rights that they thought they had, and they feel a common cause with people in the United Kingdom who are struggling to get the political rights that they thought they had in this country? Isn't it about time we showed an example that we believe in parliamentary and political democracy in this House?
Mr. Speaker. That was quite a wide-ranging question, but let me put it to the honourable gentleman in this way. This government is standing up for the rights of people, the 17.5 million people of our country that voted to leave the European Union, and respecting those that didn't. We'll make sure that we leave, no ifs, no buts, on the 31st of October.
What assurances has the Minister sought from the Spanish Government that it will respect Gibraltar's territorial waters both before we leave and after?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend makes an important point. We reject and object robustly to all incursions into Gibraltarian waters. I think since the start of this year there have been 499 such incursions, and we have made 499 objections. My honourable friend can be confirmed in his belief that we will support the people of Gibraltar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister, I believe, supports no-deal Brexit. How will the Minister ensure the people of Gibraltar that there will be no disruption of supply of goods, including food and medicine, delays of 4 hours at the borders resulting in huge economic loss, as leaked in the document Yellow Hammer? If this Minister believes the document Yellow Hammer is outdated, what is the updated solution?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman is misinformed. I do not support no deal. I want a deal with the European Union, a deal that works for Britain, a deal that works for Gibraltar. But I'm prepared to leave with no deal if we can't get the deal that's good for us by the 31st of October. We engage regularly with the Spanish government. My right honourable friend, the Foreign Secretary, spoke to Foreign Minister Borrell very recently about this matter. I engage regularly, as I've said, with the Chief Minister of Gibraltar. He assures me that Gibraltar is ready. We will make sure that Gibraltar is ready. We will make sure that we continue that dialogue with the Spanish government to ensure that there is a free flow of traffic, people and goods across the border after we leave.
Laura Pidcock.
And Natalie Jackson has not seen or had any contact from her son Dylan, who is 11, in over a year because her ex-partner has not returned him home after a summer holiday in 2018. A High Court has made Dylan ward of court and ordered his immediate return, but Dylan, in his return, was denied by the Turkish courts. I've written to the Secretary of State. Please will he answer and meet with me urgently to deliver Dylan back to his mother?
Mr. Speaker, given the urgency, of course I shall meet the honourable lady.
Order. Order.